Hello everyone, welcome to Monday Morning Must Knows. My name is Merlin Rothfeld, and I have so many things to talk about for the upcoming trading week that I'm not even going to review what happened last week. We're going to dive right in with a pretty substantial one that may impact all of Europe and could have some impact for anything that's traded on the US exchanges, and that is going to be a parliament election. That's right, there are 27 countries voting to fill 720 seats for the European Parliament. And again, if elected, it could swing the balance of power and certain initiatives may get pushed through, and it could have some ramifications for any publicly traded companies over there. Now, of course, these types of changes will take some time to get pushed through. However, it might immediately have an impact on trade relations and things like that with the European Union. So that's an important one to keep your eye up for Monday. It's supposed to happen on Sunday night, but you never know how long it takes them to finalize all the results there. Our next one's going to be earnings, and this one's also a normal, quiet earnings week. We have very few companies reporting earnings, as you can see 93 on the screen here, and we only have a few big names. Monday actually kicks things off with Oracle. That's a pretty significant one. Then on Tuesday, we've got GameStop, which is supposed to report last week, but then didn't, so who knows if they'll actually report, but it's that meme stock, which could be a lot of fun to watch. On Wednesday, you've got Aurora Cannabis, you've got Broadcom and Lenar, so home builders in play. And then on Thursday, Adobe, which is one of my favorite company. I love the software Adobe Photoshop. I'm not a Photoshop expert, but man, this whole AI thing has really been integrated into Photoshop, had a lot of fun features and played with that one. So see how that impacts their bottom line, because they're definitely doing a lot with AI. Now, we shift our focus to the inflation numbers. Of course, we saw the core PCE price indexes numbers a few weeks ago. Now we get our CPI and PPI numbers back on the table. That's going to happen on Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. That'll be the consumer price index numbers. And then immediately after that, on Thursday, you have the PPI numbers. Now, I put these charts on here just so you can kind of see the historical trajectory of them and how they've been performing. With the CPI on the top chart there, we've been stuck right around 0.3. That's not necessarily a good thing, and I'll show you that in a second. But anything that deviates from that kind of 0.3 number could create waves for the markets. Of course, anything that gets above 0.5 would be really ugly for the markets. Anything down below 0.3 means, well, inflation is starting to drop even lower. And same thing for that producer price index. You're really just watching these announcements because regardless of what the number is, there may be some wild swings in the market behavior at that moment in time. Now let's take a look at the CPI year over year. This chart is interesting because it shows kind of sideways action for about the last year or so with consumer price index, but the sideways action has been right around 3.4%. This is interesting to me because we've heard so much from Jerome Powell talking about how the Fed's target is 2%. So where does that put the inflation data based off of this chart? Well, put a horizontal line there right at 2%. We are still significantly above that. And remember, everyone is keen on rate cuts, which we'll talk about here in just a minute. If we stay at 3.4% for a prolonged period of time, we will probably not see rate cuts. We may actually see them raise rates to bring this further down. They're trying to push it lower, and raising rates would do so. So just keep your eye on this one as we get that inflation data number on Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Could be a wild mover for our markets. Now, let's move to the big stuff. We're talking about central banks. That's right, an FOMC rate statement will be coming out Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, right now, the expectations are we're going to stay exactly where we are at 5.5%. It's about a 99% probability of that happening. Now, if something were to change with this and all of a sudden we start to see those numbers drop and maybe even the probability of a rate cut, man, markets could go absolutely haywire one way or the other. Now, for right now, there's pretty much, like I said, 99% chance it's going to stay right where it's at. There's literally a 0.1% probability of a rate cut at this meeting. So for this time, I think we'll just wait it out. Now, the important news isn't actually the rate announcement. That's pretty much a foregone conclusion. What we are concerned with and interested in as traders will be the press conference, which happens 30 minutes after the statement release. So at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, that's when Jerome Powell will be grilled by a ton of different reporters on all the different aspects of inflation, their stance on it, growth, GDP, unemployment, all that stuff gets put on the table, and sometimes he slips up and creates a lot of volatility in that market. So that would be an exciting one. But we're not done there with rates. We have one more rate announcement to speak of, and that comes from Japan. They are a tentative for their rate announcement, which should happen on Thursday. Usually it's really late in the evening on Thursday. Right now, the expectations are they're going to stay the same at 0.1%. But remember, they recently raised their rates, right? First time in a long time, they actually raised from negative to a positive rate. Their currency still has not rebounded, if you will, from that rate increase. So maybe we see them tick up just a bit more, but I think it'll come right in line with expectations at 0.1%. Now, this is going to impact anybody here who's trading the US dollar Japanese yen currency pair or any currencies against the Japanese yen. So that may be of interest to all of you Forex traders. So we've got quite a few things to talk about. The big news will be the FOMC statement on Wednesday, but really the press conference and those parliamentary elections for Europe. So that, my friends, is your Monday morning must-knows. We'll see you next week.